am pleased to welcome to the 2025 edition of Statehouse Conversations Representative Robin Shackleford. She is a Democrat representative from Indianapolis, District 98.
Yes.
You've been around since 2012, so you kind of
Yes.
you know your way around
Yeah,
now.
I know my way around now.
You're telling people how it's done. So
I can direct them to the
We were joking earlier
bathrooms.
though, but you've always been in the minority, the super minority. So
Yes.
but no, nevertheless, you have an ambitious agenda
Yes.
this session, and I wanted to talk a little bit about that.
Okay.
What's on your plate?
Let's do that. So one of the things I want to focus on is chronic obesity. Dr. Barrett and myself, we held a large stakeholders meeting back in October, just asking people for legislative recommendations. How is obesity affecting the state? So hearing from providers, we heard from community leaders, we heard from drug manufacturers. So some of those recommendations I have now put into my legislation going forward for 2025. And one of the biggest ones was making sure that the drugs that are out there to kind of combat that chronic obesity, that we're approving those through the Medicaid program.
And of course, this is a budget year. Anybody who's
Yes.
read a newspaper or listened to a newscast in last month knows that. So there's a lot of sensitivity about spending and dollar in, dollar out, as you put it. Is it tough to persuade your colleagues that, this is one of those ounce of prevention, pound of cure kind of things?
Yeah, so even though my colleagues, they know we're either at the bottom of a list or top of a list when it comes to diabetes, heart disease, as far as where we are in Indiana. But as you said, when it comes to the fiscal, they want to see an immediate return on their investment. So what we're trying to do now is look at what does that return looks like within the next budget cycle, within 2 years. We know that on average, the state is being impacted by diabetes alone at a rate of about $966 million. And so we have drilled that down, that what actually comes out of that Medicaid budget is about $500 million paying for, and what we're paying when it deals with diabetes and obesity. So we're trying to see, okay, what does that savings look like within that 2-year period, and not just the cost of the drugs, but what are we actually going to save?
So to continue the medical metaphor, it's take the bitter pill now because you're going to get better. The financial hit now because
yes, because in the end we're still going to pay for it.
Ahead.
Yeah.
I guess that's the challenge when you look at health and education and those sorts of issues. They're not a snap the finger kind of proposition. So
it takes our
body.
bodies. It didn't take us minutes to get here. Like, it did not take us minutes to be obese. Like, it took years. And so years of all that financially, years of all that on your body. So now when we're trying to go and help people and get them to reduce that weight, it's still going to take those years, because it still takes time for that weight to come off. You're not just going to all of a sudden be at a perfect BMI in 2 months, and then we can see you start decreasing in payment. So it's going to take years now to start bringing off that weight and start decreasing that cost.
You looked at me when you were talking about obesity. No. I'm a little unnerved, but be that as it may, that's one of your priorities. Some others, I know you've filed some bills that you feel strongly about.
Some other ones, I've been working with my seniors, as you may or may not know, that I usually host a senior day. It's going to be March 18th. And so seniors are a large part of my advocacy. I'm trying to teach them how to advocate for themselves. They're some of our largest voters. They're very involved in the process. So one of the bills is, as I'm out there talking to seniors, they're in assisted living facilities, they're getting accepted for Medicaid, they're qualifying, but they're only allowed to keep $52 a month to help them cover any other costs that they have. This amount has not been changed in years, so I have a bill trying to increase that to $100 a month. And these are things like they still have to pay for their cell phones, they still have to pay for hair, anything they want done with their nails, any supplies that they need in their kitchen. Some of them still kind of make meals, so they still may need to buy their eggs, things like that, and food. And that's what that $52 or $100 goes towards.
So that they can have a better quality, perhaps, of life in those twilight years.
Yes.
As they're in these facilities. And I know you had a similar bill, did you not, on the human services front or on the health? I know. Please elaborate on any others you want to bring.
So one of the other things I want to focus on is the rent and how it's impacting as far as housing, how it's impacting a lot of our constituents. We know that everyone is being burdened with property taxes, those homeowners. So you have the property taxes, Also, a lot of time insurance is going up. But what we're seeing is that renters are getting the grunt of this. They're having to take on that large impact. So I have a bill that I got from another state that says if you are a landlord, that you can't increase those rents more than 5% every year. So just trying to keep it in perspective.
Is there any trigger tied to inflation if there were a year with some kind of strange spike, or is it that the cap, solid cap?
That's the cap, but I'll have to look at if there's an inflation trigger in there. Yeah.
And of course, we're dealing with part of the reason it's expensive. There's a housing shortage, I guess. Is that part of this as well? But in the meantime, this sort of gives people some certainty about what kind of cost escalation they could expect.
Yeah, because you're seeing people. I just spoke to someone was senior. Their rent went up $300. So for someone that's on a fixed income, they're still living in the same place. But now, how are they going to afford an extra $300 a month? So it has to be, we got to have some kind of perspective on what these rents should be going into. And it really does affect seniors a lot because their income is fixed. That's just it. They can't afford to go above a certain amount. Other people, we may be able to absorb it. So we can cut back here or cut back in areas. But for people that income is at a flat, their Social Security only went up a little bit. And a lot of times when the Social Security went up, then also their utilities went up, the foods went up. So it already had absorbed that increase.
Well, it has gone up. I remember paying far less than $300, which you talk about some people being hit with that increase. I think that was well more than my total monthly allocation for rent when I was, a few years ago when I was a tad younger. But well, Robin Shackleford, thank you very much for taking time to chat with us about your goals and priorities this session and your commitment to the state of Indiana and to public service. We'll be watching those bills and others as they move through. Again, District 98, Indianapolis, Robin Shackleford, we thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thanks for being here.